My head's under pressure, baby. Life's the same. It's like a suicidal incubator. Cooking my brain.
I wanted to say one thing about what Jim mentioned about having, in regard to the atheist sign in Washington, about how it would be the same as having a racist KKK sign at a Martin Luther King monument. My view on that is that it would be a different kind of situation, because with the like a KKK sign at a Martin Luther King monument could be construed as like a hate, something that is instigating hate or racial violence.
Yeah, the assassination of an individual is usually not something you want to support.
But I see that as a hate against Christians, though.
A hate against Christ.
And let me give another example really quick. Hanukkah, for an example. Okay, what happens if I just wear a swastika T-shirt?
That would be instigating hate. I mean,
But how could it be considered hate? It was an
it's-
actual group, though.
It's a hate because of what they represent. I don't agree with the whole swastika being, something always having to be seen as evil. You're absolutely right. It was a political group, but it's their actions and the way that the masses perceive them.
And the thing is that you can wear a swastika shirt, and I mean it's protected by your freedom of speech in the First Amendment. It's only when you use it to instigate some kind of an act of criminal violence or something, like it's like yelling fire in a crowded theater. If I just walk around with a swastika shirt on, I'm perfectly within my rights. But if I go and I wear a shirt that says "kill all the Jews" or something like that, that's different.
Well, but it's a holiday. I mean, if you don't want to celebrate it, instead of protesting it, just don't celebrate it.
Well, see, I think the issue there is that if they allow one religious display, you open it up to anyone who petitions to have any kind of a religiously oriented display, which the courts have ruled that atheism, like any kind of atheist message, falls under the purview of a religious statement. So if you have a nativity scene, if somebody petitions to have a Hanukkah display or a Kwanzaa display or whatever, they are, by law, if they have one, they have to allow them all. Now, it got out of control in Washington, and they finally had to shut it down and then someone stole the atheist sign.
Mm-hmm. And then they put a mockery up saying, "Oh, I thought thou shalt not steal."
Right. Well, and then it got crazy because then people wanted to put up stuff like a Festivus pole, and they wanted to put a flying spaghetti monster display and all this kind of stuff. But I think what happens is if you open it up by having a religious display at a state house, and I think that's the key point here, is that it was a public building, a state building. Mm-hmm. It's like the court has ruled that, like at state courthouse, you can't have the Ten Commandments displayed because it has religious connotations.
But if you read the Constitution, this country was founded on Christian beliefs. If you don't believe in it,
but nowhere
don't insult the country that you live in.
But nowhere in the Constitution does it say anything about Christianity. The only thing it says is it talks about providence, which can be interpreted as God, but it doesn't. It's in no way any kind of like denominational.
Yeah, it's God as almost like a generic term.
Right.
It's just God. It doesn't say that it's the Buddhist God or the Catholic God
or
the Christian God.
But this way that this country is if you allow something like that, it's going to progress into more. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the problem, is as soon as you allow people...
You give the dog a small bone, he's going to want a bigger bone eventually.
So then basically the ending choice is that you can't allow any of it, or else it's just going to go out of control. And I hate that that's the fact. We're like a bunch of kids.
I can see the point if you're putting a nativity scene just during summertime or during, just a normal day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they're putting a nativity scene up because they're celebrating Jesus. That's what Christmas is for. That's why it's Christmas.
Yeah, they could put it on another day.
But at the same time, that the atheists should be able to put up their signs saying that they believe that it's just happy holidays,
and that's fine.
It has nothing to do with it.
And they could, and they have the right to have a specific day like that. And I would be saying the same thing if the Christians were to take their holiday and do something like that to them. I would be saying the exact same thing.
And to me, like saying happy holidays or season's greetings is just being all inclusive, because you have things like Hanukkah and Kwanzaa,
So you just
and
include them
the
all.
pagans
Right, and I'm not
worship
the-
winter solstice, and even though they're pagans, they believe in a creator. It's so these are all religious things that are all encompassed by saying these things so as not to promote one particular religion over another, because we do live in a society now that is increasingly diverse where
People hate-
it used to be we were the masses were overtly Judeo-Christian, but it goes back to the whole idea of the Constitution protects us from the tyranny of the masses, so that just because 90% of the people are one thing, that other 10% still have their rights and are protected by the Constitution. And I think that's why this country has been able to survive for so long.
Which is the whole main reason why they came over here in the first place.
Right,
You
to
flee
escape religious persecution.
I got you pointing out a dollar right now. I mean, the dollar says "In God we trust,"
But
I
it's
mean, it
God
doesn't
in
say-
general.
But
It's
it doesn't-
God.
but listen,
Illuminati God.
but it doesn't say "In Allah we trust." It doesn't say "In
Exactly.
Satan
It just
we
says
trust."
Now,
God
is
is
that-
a generic term.
Is that
I mean,
the Protestant God or the Catholic God?
Who
Or
knows?
The,
Or evangelical
is it the
butt-raising
Jewish
God.
God?
Who knows?
God Almighty.
Or is it the horned one, the God of the hunt?
See, it says God in general. It's a generic term. It's something that you name the quote-unquote omnipotent being that exists in almost every single religion. There's
great
always
architect.
one. It's
Right.
yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be a generic term to include all.
Well, my point is, I'm totally against it. I'm totally against it because
Against-
if people that were
Against the
atheists
sign?
had a holiday,
Yeah.
okay, I would be saying the same thing about Christians. Do not invade their time. Let them do their thing. That's fine. Okay, it's their holiday. Christmas is Christian, Catholic, people who believe in Christ and God. That's their holiday. You don't need to be protesting it. What are you trying to do? I mean, what is your motive there?
In that
Just like-
particular one, in the incident that happened in Washington, it turned from a religious expression into a freedom of speech expression, in which the same social experiment happens where people just go out of control, and then eventually they just have to shut it all down.
They could have picked a better time to do it. Come on now.
No,
And I just also want to point out that even as an agnostic myself, I still like Christmas. I don't have a problem with saying Merry Christmas or calling it a Christmas tree.
Right.
So I think it all goes to people's different sensibilities. It's all subjective. So hey, I'll tell you Merry Christmas and
yeah.
and
Celebrate the birth
whatever.
of Christ, and regardless of what people believe, if it is or is not the birth of Christ, is.
But just keep in mind too that
Subjective.
we also want to point out that December
Yes.
25th, even though to Christians is it's Christmas, to other groups that same holiday is construed as something else. Right? It was based on the winter solstice, and it was the Roman festival of Saturnalia. So it's all stuff that falls in that same time that. It's like saying each one has a legitimate claim on that holiday. But I mean, I totally understand what you're saying is that it was deliberately antagonizing to Christians. And I agree. I think the best thing that should have done either move the atheist sign somewhere else or don't allow anything at all and put the nativity scene up in front of the church where I think it belongs.
Now about the Christmas thing on the 25th. Do you notice Christmas has Christ in it?
Well, that's because that's what they called it. You're right. They took
Because
something that
of
previously
Christ.
existed. They took something that previously existed, and they changed it so that it fit.
It was a
Yeah.
marketing move that was done by the early Christian
then
church
it
in
would
order to
have-
win
Catholic
pagans.
Church.
You know
Right,
what?
the Catholic
If it was for Santa Claus, it would say Santa's Day. But
But Santa,
It's for
Santa
Christ.
is not a religious thing. Santa
Christmas.
is a
Christmas.
tradition. Santa is a tradition that has grown to the point of
It's been secularized, and even though Santa himself, of course, as you know,
Existed.
is a representation, basically a corrupted representation of Christian Saint Nicholas, who was a real guy. Today, the Santa Claus that we have is in my opinion, it's a commercial secular image like Rudolph. That all these things they kind of fall under that.
Well, Big Bill's got a topic about that, about commercialization and so forth.
I'm a former employee of a company that uses a red target as their symbol, I should say. And at the time, yeah, this was about 18 years ago, so eyes weren't very open to actually what was going on, and I was a seasonal employee. And when I went in for my orientation, they told us to not wear anything that had any type of religious symbolization to it. So And I asked the reason why, and there were a couple people that were obviously very open Christians, Catholics, whatever, and they asked why, and they said, well, the reason why you're here is because of Santa Claus.